doubles chess, mixed doubles chess. Yeah, the possibilities endless.
Yeah, I'm imagining you there, David, in like the Great Britain attire, playing for your country.
Wrapped around a flag, you know, just, oh, that would be the dream.
Oh, and with the gold medal.
I know, that's absolutely my dream, actually, to be standing there on the podium and to hear my national anthem go.
Yeah.
Oh, I've never had that, even though I won gold medal. But that's a story for another day.
Let's keep on dreaming. It could be possible for you guys at some point if chess makes it to the Olympics. And here Wesley Wesley So goes with his first move.
Yeah, he goes on the board, but he also goes away, just taking a step off the camera, just making those last-minute preparations. It's the same opening as yesterday we saw a couple of times. The Spanish opening, both sides pushing their king's pawn. White's the first to get castled, and Black is the first to spring a small surprise. Liem, yesterday, he didn't play this bishop move. He developed that bishop to a different square, just one square forward, a less ambitious move. This one, though, it's very fashionable, very popular. And Wesley replies by pushing a pawn. Black there, kicking back White's bishop, but White is getting ready after that bishop retreats to push pawns in the centre, to kick Black's dark-squared bishop off and away from this nice diagonal. And, OK, Liem, he doesn't hesitate, though. He goes into the most tense position possible. Look at this, all 4 pawns in the centre of the board. This is maximum tension. And, OK, Black now taking a pawn, attacking the White knight. Will White move that knight? Will he capture the Black bishop? Both moves are possible right now. This is still well-known stuff, relatively, but I've always struggled to analyse them because even computers change their mind on every turn. Sometimes they say, oh, White is just winning. Sometimes they say, oh, actually, it's not clear at all. Pawn structures tend to end up really weird and lots of trades tend to happen.
Yeah, definitely a big surprise from Liem there. And this is certainly a reflection on the match situation. He feels like he wants to win, so he plays the most aggressive line. And I have to say, Wesley has actually played this move before. He played it in 2016 against Alexander Onyshuk, a very strong American grandmaster.
Yep, and I think that was at the US Championships.
That's right.
I remember watching that game. So we have seen this position, or did he play this move last time? I'm not so sure.
No, what happened actually in last time in that particular game, instead of Black moving the queen forward, he actually jumped forward with his knight. So we have a different move. So Wesley will be a little bit on his own, but Wesley, of course, playing top choice by developing his dark square bishop out to that square and thus pinning the Black knight that's sitting there on f6. Main move here is actually to pick up the light square bishop that Black has and develop it onto the long diagonal. But this position, I must say, it is razor sharp. And it's so sharp because Black has a good piece activity. Every single one, OK, he's played it. Black has every single piece working on nice squares, and this is what makes the position so dynamic. So I'm expecting Wesley now to play a very confrontational move, maybe picking up his rook that's next to his king and moving it one square and just lining it up against the Black queen. Other moves he can play is maybe develop the queen, but I fully suspect he will start challenging.
So it feels like a type of position that Wesley will have studied before. Maybe not recently. We mentioned that he had this opening once in 2016. So maybe after that game in 2016, he would have been studying something very similar to this. But how's your recall? How's your memory, Wesley? Have you repeated your lines? Yeah, this one, as Ivanka mentioned, it's razor sharp. Also, look at the pawn structure. It's actually level pawns, but Black has a majority on the king side, on the right side, because Black has this really strong pawn in the centre, which is actually quite hard to get rid of. White, meanwhile, has double pawns on the C line. And because of that small imbalance, that means later on it will come down to who can pick off their opponent's pawns. White there, developing his knight. He's eyeing up White's central pawn. Maybe he's even trying to take it next move. And, yeah, it's all of this pawn structures and also the fact that White has a bishop pair. It's all these imbalances that make the position so complex. And wow,
whoa,
Liem, I was not expecting that. He's castled away to the queen side. We call it castling long on the long side. Opposite side castling now means there's going to be attacks. Both sides are actually going to throw pawns, throw pieces towards the opponent's kings.
But the other side looks so much safer.
You're right. That's why I'm so shocked there. I think he wanted to get his rook onto this open line to kind of attack the White knight and pin it against the White queen. But to do it while castling, he could have just played that rook move and then next move castled his king to a safer side. Wow, Liem, he's trying to bank on the fact that every move counts, and the black king, I guess it has a nice bishop to defend it later on. There's no attacking pieces yet over that side for white, but ooh, it's playing with fire.
Wow. I was gonna say that, wow, okay, this looks like a calmer game than the previous one, and no.
No. This one as well, it will heat up for sure, now that the kings are sitting on opposite flanks. And black there, he's dived in with his knight to an outpost, that knight defended by a pawn and by black's rook. Now, white really doesn't want to take that knight off, but maybe you have to at some point, because that knight is just phenomenal, sitting in white's camp, attacking so many pawns, kind of clogging things up as well. White wants to bring his rooks to the centre, but how can you do that if black's knight is sitting there kind of right in your face? So, oof. Yeah,
Wow.
he's playing super ambitious chess. Even after winning earlier with white, I would have thought just solid with black, draw, just try and win today's match, try and take it to the Blitz playoffs. But no, with this decision to castle queenside, he has basically waved the red flag, and Wesley, he's charging into it like a bull now. He's pushed his pawns forward. He's trying to open up this line for his rook to get to that black king. Wow, I mean, this one, I have a feeling we're going to see twists and turns, just like we saw earlier today. Now it's clear that Wesley's the one attacking. In the first game today, Liem was attacking. Now sides have changed. But if black can maintain his strong knight and keep the black king safe, he has a great position. It is a big if, however.
Yeah. So are you impressed with Liem to sort of go into this and play like this and castle queenside, you know, when he does have that one win in the bank?
Yeah, I like the fighting spirit behind it. Probably this is something he cooked up last night. Maybe he thought, oh, he might be in a must-win situation with black, but he's using this anyway. So I like the spirit behind it, but maybe he will regret it if he does end up getting that black king under heavy fire. Maybe he'll look back and think, oh, there were so many solid choices I could have chosen in the opening.
Interestingly enough, although this position hasn't actually been played before, it has been studied. I'm checking on my database and I can see someone in 2020 and 2019 had a look.
And David just spilled some water.
I'm so excited by the position on the board that I just had a little accident, spilled some water. But could have been worse, could have been worse.
Oh, yes.
That's how nerve-wracking this position is on the board and how exciting I find it. But yeah, I was just trying to calculate some variations and trying to multitask with my hand. Chess players don't multitask.
Have you ever had any accidents like that during over the board chess? Because of course you do have some drinks by the board.
Yes, lots of accidents like that. Yeah, all the time. You know, you spill a cup of coffee, a cup of tea.
Ooh.
Yeah.
That must be very putting you out of the game kind of thing.
Well, normally you have it's like a light relief actually, because chess is so serious that when something like that happens, you kind of laugh with your opponent and you go, okay, fine. I mean, when someone spills cups of coffee all over the board, you kind of go, okay, great, and then you actually just change the board. You find somewhere else to sit. Okay, and well, we have a move. The queen stepping forward to the centre. Has been analysed in 2020.
Ooh.
So, shall I tell you what were the options looked at? The dark squared bishop actually capturing the knight. That was one alternative. And the other one was actually just to step back with the bishop 2 squares.
Mm-hmm. Back to this square, you like?
Yeah. And I think stepping back with the bishop is actually a lot more natural move. But, well, this is where things get really scary, because what was analysed was that black picked up their rook pawn and moved it 2 squares forward. So the plan is very clear. Black wants to actually jump in with a knight and threaten checkmate. Who doesn't get a thrill from that? But after white's analysed, pawn takes pawn, the knight did jump in, and hey, that's chaos all over the board.
Wow, this would be
a crazy line.
Yeah, I was saying earlier that white's the one doing the attacking, but this would be crazy if black suddenly jumps in using the queen and knight together to target this pawn. Suddenly, this is scary for white, right? You have to be really careful to avoid this type of attack. So, OK, this is the dilemma facing Wesley So in the current position. Do you retreat your bishop to this square, but maybe allow black the time to start pushing forward with his pawns, his knights? Or do you just try and eliminate as many pieces as possible and take this knight off? But I think this would allow black to recapture, not with the queen, but with the pawn. And suddenly, open lines towards the enemy monarch. That is also pretty scary.
Yeah, it is very, very scary. I mean, also when you consider that light squared bishop that black has, well, that also has some hidden potential. You know, if you can imagine that if black pushes a pawn forward, chaos will reign all over the board. And you have to remember, this is not really what Wesley wants. Wesley's kind of, he just wants to consolidate. He just wants a risk-free win where he just grinds out his opponent. There's a big margin of error here. If he makes one slip up, then that's it. He could succumb to a mating attack.
Yeah, and I would probably retreat my bishop this way and pray and hope for the best. But like you say, Ivanka, a mating attack is imminent, or at least an attempt at a mating attack. And I wouldn't be surprised to see Liem just push his pawn forward. This is the type of move that we're all trained to do. OK, this might be on the board. White has stepped back with that bishop, but we are all trained to do nowadays because of the AI program AlphaZero and all modern computers trying to push their corner pawns, their rook's pawns forward at any opportunity. And here is especially strong, supporting the knight leap. Yeah, this one, wow. What an opening and what a matchup so far it's proving to be. Liem surprising us all throughout the week, surprising us earlier on today, surprising Wesley, and this game as well, showing why he's becoming such a fan favourite so quickly. Just no fear. Imagine playing your first big final in the Champions Chess Tour, one of the biggest matches of your life, playing one of the world's elite like Wesley So, and you're just attacking as if it's kind of a casual game down the park. So impressive strategy, impressive kind of attitude behind that. What
I like about it is that yesterday, let's face it, it was quite this devastating day for Liem. You know, he started off the game really well, and then somehow things just collapsed after one bad move. And today he's come out swinging, he's won his first game, and I suspect that it might be something to do with his students at Webster University, because Liem is actually a coach of Webster University, and I can just imagine the scenario that the students all gather around and say, "You got it, coach. You can do it. Let's all work together. It's a team effort, and let's come up with ways to unsettle Wesley, how to be his perfect nemesis." And this I thoroughly approve because it seems to be working. Wesley now on the back foot.
Yeah, Wesley on the back foot. If black plays this pawn move that we mentioned, if Liem takes a bit of time out, if maybe he just brings the rooks towards the centre, just plays on autopilot, if he doesn't actually threaten anything, then White's attack is going to be the quickest. White is already, if you look at the left side, he's about to just capture a pawn. He's about to open up the A line for his rook. So you have to be extremely quick with black. You can't just kind of refuse to calculate, refuse to actually want to take action. You have to actually do something right now, and that's why we're expecting this pawn move from Liem. It looks like he's about to make a move just from his body language. No, just hesitating a bit more. 2 minutes he spent here. I'm trying to look for alternatives. What else could he be considering? Maybe he wants to shut down that left side of the board somehow, but it's not easy. No matter what happens, that left side of the board is about to open up. That's why you have to initiate this race. And if your king is going to come under fire anyway, you might as well go for the opponent's king. OK, I expect him to push that pawn forward and really initiate the chaos. Just press that button and just say, OK, it's time for fire. But, OK, he's still thinking. Nearly 3 minutes now for Liem. I don't see any other real tempting moves. Maybe he wants to improve... I was going to say maybe he wants to improve his knight, but bring it towards the centre. That knight sitting on f6, bring it into the centre of the board. But that knight should be destined to go towards the white king, as we showed on the board a few moments ago. So
also it feels like it's too slow, because to have a look at White's pieces there on the left, you know, they are primed for a big opening, especially on the A line. And one thing that we're taught is that when the king's castle on opposite sides, it's war. You throw your pieces forward, you open up lines, you do whatever it takes. So I don't see anything else.
Yeah, as I mentioned, that is it's about to come open on that side, so you have to fight back.
Definitely.
Yeah, I think Liem's just maybe hesitating, trying to look into the future. He's definitely on his radar, pushing that rook's pawn forward, but maybe he's just considering what's going to happen after that. Maybe Wesley has lots of choice. Wesley, for example, can take a pawn, or he can take the black knight, or he can maybe use the white bishop to attack the black queen. Lots and lots of choice for White on the next turn. But it would just be practical here to play your move. It's the move you want to play anyway, and then work out the consequences later, as long as you're sure it's not a blunder. And it's definitely not a blunder, so
Oh, it's on the board, David. Yep. It's there. And
took him too long, though. 3 minutes on that move. It was by far the most logical.
Yeah, that's true.
Will that haunt him? Will that come back to bite him later on, spending those 3 minutes?
I think that, yes, it will come back to bite him because the position is not going to get any calmer. And there we have it, pawn takes pawn on the board. And so we're fully expecting the black knight to start jumping forward to the g4 square. And together, the black knight and the queen will align to create a mating threat on h2.
So if black doesn't do this, so Liem's hesitating right now, if black doesn't play that move, if he just takes that white pawn, the white pawn that has captured the black pawn, if he just takes that, it gives white valuable time. White will start bringing his rook into the action, bringing his rook to start attacking the black king. I think you have to be quick. I think you have to just kind of get your skates on and go for that attack, not waste too much time. And, OK, maybe he's going to go for that safety-first approach, taking a pawn, but no, he goes on the attack. He does leap forward with his knight, and that forces Wesley So to deal with this threat. The black queen threatening to take the pawn next to the white king, pawn on the h2 square. So Wesley, he's blocked the diagonal of the black queen. But any time you push a pawn in front of your own king, it gives your opponent targets. It makes you easier for your opponent to open up lines later on. So you can't do this right now, but later on, black wants to push his h-pawn forward even further. He wants to step it forward and trade a set of pawns, open up the h-line for black's rook. You can't do that right now, as I mentioned, because black's pawn is defending its knight. So you need to move that knight first later or defend that knight, and then you will start pushing pawns and opening up lines. But white is the first to have opened up a line, and Liem maybe needs to take a timeout to capture this pawn now, finally, on that left flank.
Yeah. In fact, I was just taking a look at the analysis that our friend has done, we don't know who, in 2020. And there they were analysing the boldest moves that black could possibly play. And that was just to capture the bishop. And then they analysed pawn takes pawn, which is a kind of nice in-between move. In chess, we have some nice, nifty words for these type of moves, and that would be like a Zwischenzug. And so we're looking at pawn takes pawn, and then knight takes bishop, and then the play got so wild. They stopped.
You want to check out these wild lines, Ivanka?
Yeah, let's do it.
Because look at these black knights. It looks suicidal to leave them on the board. It looks like automatically you just take this knight off. For example, you can take it with your queen or your pawn, and this looks OK for white, but you do allow black time now to just capture your pawn, and black still has this idea in the air of opening things up on this flank. And you mentioned the chaos that would arise, and it's about to arise on the board, because after knight takes bishop, that Zwischenzug, the in-between move, did happen. White ignored those black knights, and pawn takes pawn. Wow, how crazy is this? These two knights sitting in white's throat, just living and attacking everything. And as you mentioned, black's knight can just go and grab a piece, and it has to. Stockfish, the computer, actually says this is black's only move in the position, not to be seriously worse, to take this white bishop. And now after pawn takes bishop check, king recaptures. Suddenly, white is actually a piece down. These two knights as well, dancing around, taking everything. But after white moves this rook, maybe you lift it up the board. There will be huge threats. You're actually now threatening, if black does nothing, to push this pawn forward with check and unleash an attack, a discovered attack against the black queen. Wow, this is, I mean, I could go on about this position for 20, 30 minutes if I could, but this position, the one we have on the board right now, after pawn takes pawn, it is just the most chaotic position we've seen in the Champions Chess Tour. I said that about the last game. This is another level. This is just wild, wild stuff. Everything's attacked. The bishop's attacked. The knight's attacked. This bishop's attacked. So many things to calculate here, and that's why Liem's spending some time.
Wow. OK, so right now, what do you think this will end up with? Anything
can happen. I mean, you can see a situation where Liem has managed to just fend off Wesley's army, and he will be winning. If Wesley is going to win, he's probably going to do it quickly and strongly. OK, and it's happened, David. All those captures are on the board, and I loved your rook move that you showed us there. And yeah, you can actually see some of Stockfish's choices there. And it's actually suggesting stepping forward with a knight.
Yeah, so that would actually be very logical as well, maybe even more logical than my rook move. So, OK, now the rook move's overtaken that, but I just saw that the white rook was attacked in the corner of the board, and I thought, OK, move it and create a threat in the process. But there are options. For example, as Jovanka mentioned, the white knight right now is actually in the way. The white queen wants to start attacking the black knight on this second row. So if you move the knight out of the way, you can do that attacking black's queen at the same time. And next move, you might even just capture that black knight. So that's also very logical. Both of those two moves have pros, have cons. And Wesley, he knows that white's OK here. He knows that the black king is actually far more open than the white king. But he has to still accelerate the play. He still has to go for that black king because temporarily he's a piece down.
Yeah. I mean, you suggested the rook move. I really like that one. I think that's a good developing move as well because you still maintain all the type of threats that are on the position. Because, yes, black is a piece up. But, hey, if you take a look at the knight that's sitting there on c2, it's trapped. Not that many squares. So maybe white can actually try to win that one back.
Yeah.
It's like you always have to remember some people are really scared of sacrificing and they want to as quickly as possible win everything back.
Yeah. Whenever I sacrifice a pawn or sacrifice a piece, my dream is to just win the material back. I don't even want to go for checkmate. I'm just like, OK, restore material parity and then
yeah.
Let's get into an endgame. Yeah, I notice when players are young, often they love to sacrifice. It's romantic, right? It's just you give up all your army, you just checkmate. You only have one piece left, but you deliver checkmate. When you get old, you just want to keep all the pieces on the board, everything protected, everything nice and safe, play the long game, no risk. But the top players, the reason they're the top players are because they can switch between these two modes. They know when to sacrifice and they know when to just dig deep and grind things out.
And whilst we're waiting for Wesley to make a move in this critical juncture, well, we do have a quiz of the day in which we're asking in which Olympic sport would you have the best chance of winning a medal and why? And I do have to tell you Signor Mark's answer. It's quite clever. It says, I would try my luck at cycling like Austria's gold medal winner Anna Kiesenhofer, using her brilliant mind, she's got a Cambridge degree in mathematics, to find a bunch of sneaky moves, as David would say, to checkmate the Dutch Armada at Mount Fuji.
Wow.
Nice.
Nice.
Sneaky moves are the best moves.
They are the best moves. I do wonder, actually, when it comes to chess, comes to sports, like how valuable our strategic minds are as chess players.
I bet very. I've asked several like athletes and trainers before because I have worked with chess as a journalist for a long time, and they always say, yeah, chess. It's amazing to train with chess. Especially for like football coaches and stuff, just because it's so strategic. It improves how you think and how you plan games and stuff.
Exactly, because we always have like different types of strategies and plans of attack, and we consider our opponents and we adopt our games for them. So, I quite like the idea of being a manager.
Ooh, I know.
That would be so cool.
Just boss everyone around.
Yes, and if any of you have any special skills, OK, you can tweet your answer using #ChessChamps. OK, well, we have, wow, David. That was not a move that was on my radar whatsoever. Well, he's just pushed a pawn forward and he's just luring the king out into the open.
Yeah,
wow. That is a very unpleasant move to actually face over the board.
Yeah, it's a super scary move for black to face. And the way that Wesley So stumbled across this move is because he went to the ABCs of chess. He looked at the checks, captures and threats, and why not flick in a check? Now black's king is under fire. Huge dilemma for that king. You don't necessarily want to step into the centre of the board, but if you don't take that pawn off now, that pawn is going to help create some checkmating ideas against the black king later. So the most principled move in my eyes, just take that pawn, hope for the best, cross your fingers, just pray that you're not going to get checkmated with black. But Wesley, I actually showed an earlier line with bringing white's rook up the board. Wesley has played this idea of the pawn push first because later on there might be similar ideas like bringing a knight in or bringing a rook up, and he's going to gain time while the black king steps forward and runs away. He's going to gain 2 or 3 valuable moves with which to attack. And after the king did take that pawn, I think he had to. Now white's knight's leaped forward, attacking the black queen in the middle, and white's queen suddenly can take one of the black knights.
Yeah, and I think this is the critical idea. I do think that Wesley was very, very sneaky, if I have to say, because I think his idea was to first of all, attack the queen, and then if the queen were to counterattack that white knight, then the white knight could actually dance away from the threat with check. And then he could go back to winning material and then attacking the black king, which is, well, frightfully exposed, if I have to say so. But, I mean, OK, we should show it on the board.
Yep, so an attack against the black queen. The black queen simply has to move. I expect her to, centralise herself. Queens are best in the middle of the board, attacking this knight, as you mentioned, Ivanka. And now you mentioned a way to win this black knight, but not losing your knight in the process.
Exactly. And that's just to give a check.
OK. So
put your knight on the edge of the board. And the key thing is, where is the black king going to go?
Back. Run away.
OK, yeah, and then Wesley can go queen takes knight and say, hey, I recovered my knight. But the issue is not over here because, you know, black has the makings of an attack there on the right side, the king side, and it's still going.
Yeah, it's going to continue. And actually, black's king doesn't look safe, but it's pretty safe for now. Black's king actually is helped by the fact it has this really strong knight, so there's never going to be an attack on this central line. So black's king is actually surprisingly safe. And meanwhile, black, if he does get time to push this pawn, next move, it's inevitable, no matter what white does. For example, if you play something on the other side of the board, no matter what white does, this pawn will capture and the black rook will come into the game. And suddenly, as you mentioned, Ivanka, black has the makings of the attack. Okay. And this is actually about to happen. We've seen a check. The black king will run away. You simply have to. And after queen takes knight, Liem is going to go on the attack himself. He said, OK, you've played your hand. You've showed me your cards. You've done everything. Now it's my turn. And now black is the one about to launch his
counterattack.
Yeah.
And, one move that I was looking at is what happens if the white queen gives a check? But, you know, you can just block it with a pawn. Not a problem. I love that move, putting that king in the centre.
Yeah, king of the hill. Run towards the centre with your king. Be brave with your king. You need to be sometimes. There's just no other option in this scenario.
So if it does actually run to the right, it's going to be on an epic journey. I mean, when did we see the king kind of snake its way outside and then back again? Oh, that would be something a first for me.
Yeah. It's very rare, especially with all the heavy pieces on the board, the major pieces, queens, rooks. Yeah. You don't see a king kind of just step outside in front of its pawns, then kind of wave and step back and run back. Such a rare game, a unique game, this one.
How many moves are we in? We are in 22 moves and quite a few king moves in there.
Let me count. 1, 2, 3. It's about to be black's 4th king move out of 22 moves. Yeah, that's brave. We might well see more king moves from black later on. But I'm surprised that Liem's thinking. I think the centre is the safest place for the king. If you move now, if the black king shifts towards the left side, suddenly it's far more open. So it does run back.
Yeah.
And as we saw, Wesley, he pre-moved there, actually. Yeah. He pre-moved the white queen, taking that black knight, because he would have played that after almost any black response. And now it's time for black counterattack. Yes. Push Harry the H-pawn. Black needs to start pushing pawns, opening up lines towards the white king. Otherwise, the black king is just vulnerable with no compensation.
Exactly, and I agree with you. It is time for black to go full throttle. He doesn't do that. He switches play to left. That is very surprising, and it's a little bit inconsistent because black has set everything up very nicely on the right side, and he's. But we have actually seen this be a skill and maybe an advantage that Liem has. He is able to be very dexterous and switch to positional play as well as from attacking play, basically.
Yeah, very agile. He definitely takes each move, each new position as it comes. Some players, they get fixated, myself included. We get fixated on one idea and we just have to stick with it, whether it's good or not. We just continue going and going and going. But he's definitely good at taking a step back, being objective and thinking, OK, I'm not so sure about this, so let's switch to something else. And he might change his opinion on every move, but it's a nice skill to have sometimes. But sometimes you have to be consistent. And there I do think black should have been consistent this one occasion. Right now, Wesley, the fact that he's thinking means that maybe he's got a sneaky plan up his sleeve, because white's knight on the edge of the board is actually trapped. It was attacked by black's rook and by black's queen, but Wesley leaves that knight hanging. He's actually just offering that knight for free because he's threatening now with white to bring his rook across the board and pin the black queen to the black king. So white is threatening to bring his rook to the d4 square, and that would actually win the black queen right now. So there's no time to go and take white's knight. That is so creative from Wesley So. Most people, they see a piece attacked, they just defend it or move it. But no, he counterattacks.
Yeah.
And Liem, I'm 100% sure he's missed that move. That was not an easy one to see visually. And he reacts by bringing his king back. That king is really going on an adventure. I'm not so
Marathon.
sure. Yeah, it's really, it's got its dancing shoes on today. But is that king safe there? You didn't like it, Jovanka. I saw you make a face there.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of just because, in principle, that black king doesn't have any pawn protection, and I think it can be very, very vulnerable there. And I'm thinking that if that black king is vulnerable, then black will actually need to take some time out, spend some energy protecting it. So this could be just keeping a queen there. And if you have to have one queen with always one eye on the defensive, then you're not able to start attacking properly. And that's what makes... OK, now he's attacking. OK, well, we like it, as always, but I mean...
Better late than never, right?
Is it? Yeah, it does look like this is the right way to go. But Wesley now playing some crafty moves on the board because he's just put his queen on the same diagonal as black's queen. So there is a big threat. The big threat is actually jump forward with the knight to the b6 square, give the black king a check, and once black recaptures that knight, queen takes queen. Loose pieces drop off.
Yeah, so black's queen undefended, and there's a huge threat to win her on the next turn with white's knight just leaping out of the way. And therefore, black has to move his queen, I think. You just have to move the queen because actually even defending it right now just wouldn't work. You don't have time, for example, to trade rooks on this A-line. You just have to move the queen out of the way. It's forced right now for black, and you can maybe move her back. You have to keep her on this diagonal, protecting black's rook in the corner. You can move her back 1 square, but you can also drop her back 2 squares and challenge white's queen on the B-line. I think OK, Liem, he will move his queen. Everything else loses immediately, as far as I can tell. But which square to choose? Do you offer a trade of queens? Do you keep the queens on the board? Huge decision for him here. But suddenly he is dropping low on the clock, 2 minutes against 5.5. And also he's facing threats on every turn. Wesley, with his last, 4-5 moves, he's been creating a threat. And psychologically, it's hard to react. That normally tends to be when people blunder, when they kind of ward off all the threats. But
OK.
Surprising. That king continues its journey. It just moved 2 turns ago. It's gone again.
Yeah, but I feel like it's a step in the wrong direction, right?
It's risky. It's risky. I mean, the black king, it's being indecisive. It's run away one direction, it's stepped back, then now it's kind of shifting back where it came from.
And it's still unsafe.
Still not safe, yeah.
So if I were white, I would be tempted to actually just capture that rook.
Yep.
And just to decoy that black queen from the central post, and then just resume putting black under pressure.
Yeah, that looks very sensible. Black's queen. Now we should mention you can't win the black queen because the white knight cannot jump forward and give check. That's why the king moved. The black king moved out of any potential checks from the white knight, and that tension, the diagonal where both queens sit on. That tension was favourable for white on the last go, but no longer. That's why rook takes rook, as Jovanka mentioned, is very sensible. Force that black queen to retreat, get her out of the centre of the board onto a worse square, and then come up with a new plan. Maybe the white queen can jump in, the white knight can move, but the white queen and knight cannot move while that black queen sits on this square. Wesley, the other option, slightly tempting, is to bring his rook next to the white king, swing it the whole way across. But I think that's a bit slow. That would give black time to trade rooks and then start opening up the other side of the board, opening up the position near white's king. So you have to be quick here. You have to trade rooks and then keep creating threats. OK, Wesley with 4 minutes, though, against 2. This one, the computer might say it's roughly level, but I still think it's anyone's game. Personally, I think white has actually quite a big advantage if he's accurate, because the black king is just so vulnerable over the next few moves.
And also with the clock, of course.
And with the clock, yeah.
Wow. Well, Wesley is spending some time on this move. Is it important for him to keep that advantage, sort of just mentally as well?
Yeah, for sure. It's like riding a bike. You just need to keep pedaling now, otherwise you might fall off. And you just need to maintain that pace. And also, if we flash back yesterday to Wesley's interview afterwards, he said, Liem forgot to take care of his king a couple of times, and that's why he's trying to go for that black king. Okay, he does bring his rook across. I wasn't 100% sure about this. We did see a trade. Now white's queen taking, There's a threat, Jovanka.
There is a threat. The queen is going to launch herself forward and give a check, and at the same time skewer the black rook. The king and the rook are on the same line. So there is a big threat in the position, as you said. Now, would you say this is like a game of football?
Yes. My favourite game.
You know, the football commentators always say, just when it's boring, they're like, oh, yeah, it's like a chess game.
Yeah.
When it's 0-0.
Yeah, exactly. And the king steps forward.
But now the king is back out into the open. And how many times has this king moved? We have to go back and count. It must be 7 or 8 times by now. And now it's still out in the open. And white's gaining time again. Every threats on every move. White knight now hitting the black queen, kicking the black queen away. And suddenly, for Liem, it's really on the brink. The queen has to defend her central pawn. White's queen is on this 4th line, attacking black's central pawn. So the black queen had to step to this square, I think, keeping everything protected, everything defended. But Liem, he's walking a tightrope. And Wesley, if he can keep creating these threats, I'm nervous for Liem. It does feel like everything is turning against him. Remember, black was the one trying to attack the white king, but he hasn't had time to do anything on that side of the board for the last 6 or 7 moves. Wesley just hasn't given him time, and another threat from Wesley.
Definitely. The queen has centralised herself and is now attacking some pawns. And it's not just that. The white rook is threatening to also come down to the 7th line and work together in a team with the queen, and that would be very, very unpleasant for Liem. So Liem now has to find an accurate move to just remain in the game. What would you play here? I think I would just capture the pawn.
Yeah.
Capture the pawn and open up the line for the rook.
Does that lose immediately, though? White's knight is threatening to give a deadly check in the centre of the board.
Oh, yes.
I don't know. The black king, it won't survive much longer. I got it confirmed, by the way. After the first 28 moves in this game, black moved the king 7 times. So a quarter of his moves were king moves. Oh, wow. And that king still isn't safe now. That is rare and not a good strategy. Definitely don't try that at home.
And we have the deadly threat on the board of knight to come into the d5 square to give check. And that is why Liem has moved his rook to attack the queen. But he's given up a pawn. And Wesley, he's in an aggressive mood, you know. He says, you don't need to ask me twice. And now Liem relocates his knight to the centre. So there's still a lot of danger in the air. I mean, neither king is especially safe. I would say black's king is really like, but white's king is still some danger to it.
Yeah, still some danger for the white king. So black's last move, it looks like a retreat, but actually that black knight wants to jump towards the white king and give check. And then actually there are some checkmating ideas against the white king. Wow. So white has to be super careful. Liem trying to go on the counter-attack. Sometimes you just can't defend a position. You have to counter. White giving a check there with his queen.
Always.
Asking a question of the black king. I think you have to retreat that black king. You can maybe block with the pawn, but retreating is safer. So the 9th move, no, is it the 8th move, sorry, with the black king now?
Wow. OK, well, now there's a threat in the air, so you can't just pick up any piece on the board. You have to actually move your queen or your king, because black is threatening to play knight to f3 check and then do a fork. So that is why he moves his queen to the h5 square. And, OK.
Yep, keeping things safe for now. Wesley, he's put his queen on the square that cannot be attacked by the black knight. That's very sensible, especially with only a couple of minutes on the clock. Just keep your pieces as far away from your opponent's knights as possible. Knights are the trickiest beasts around. But, OK, it's tempting to give a check anyway with black and ask that white king where it's going. Maybe black could push a pawn. OK, he has done.
He has pushed the pawn.
He's closed the cage around the white king. So now the white king always has to be wary of some checks on the bottom row. So that white king is not really
But I like Wesley's response. He just simply blocks off the coordination between the queen and the pawn. Check is on the board. White king moves to the corner. And, well, white's plan is actually twofold. First of all, to give a check on the g7 square. That would be a fork against the king and queen. Yeah, with the white knight. And the other one is to go play queen takes pawn and just eliminate that very pesky pawn there on h3.
Yeah, and actually I was going to say the biggest threat in the position was probably for white's queen to even go up to the top of the board and give check.
But Liem has actually countered these threats with a counter threat. He is threatening to come down with back. OK, but Wesley, too smart.
too smart. He gave a check, and that was a very important check that Wesley gave, because now he's forced the black king, to step in front of its own rook. So now black's rook didn't have the time to go active and come down and check the white king. So now black's king is also attacked indirectly by white's queen. White's won a pawn in the process. The white knight is threatening to jump out of the way with a discovered check. This one's over. This is just too many pawns. White is up. White's up 2 pawns right now, and the black king still not safe after all this time. How many times now has it moved? Is it 10?
It's going to move again, David.
It has to move again, yeah.
It has to, because, you know, a deadly check is in the air. Queen takes pawn. OK, why not? OK, wow. So instead of moving the black king, we thought that was necessary. Black's just gone and grabbed a pawn, but he's counterattacking against white's rook in the corner. So either you can move the white knight and give a check, kind of discover check with the white queen against the black king, or you can just bring your white rook across. Yeah. And some calculation needs to be done there. OK, so he does give a check with his rook. OK, now the black king needs to move, steps forward. Why not? OK. So there was a trap. If white's rook went and took the black rook, black would have actually given checkmate. He would have brought the black queen down and trapped the white king. The queen and knight would have teamed up to deliver checkmate. But now you can actually capture the rook, because there is no checkmate, because the king will hide itself on the h3 square. So now queen check, king goes to h3, queen takes pawn, king will run again to the g4 square, and just have a look. Every single one, well, the knight and the queen are both protected. That's the white pieces. So black has got nothing. Yeah, and Wesley, he was so alert. Actually, earlier he gave a check with the white queen. Partly, as you mentioned, Ivanka, to put that queen on a square. It's protected by the white knight, but also the white queen was previously blocking the escape of the white king. So the white king now finally has space to run to. So, yeah, Wesley, he's done everything right so far, but the king isn't entirely safe, so still some small pitfalls to avoid. Meanwhile, black's king, you can't really check it right now with white. So black's king finally has found safety just momentarily, but it's come at the cost of a rook. White is a rook up, and with 2 or 3 accurate moves, he should be able to consolidate that. Just keep the white king safe. That's all that's required. Exactly. And the first move that I would be thinking about is just simply retreating the queen to put her on the f4 square. So it's protected by a pawn. My king can still run to the g4 square. It's got a hiding place. I'm happy about that. Lots of squares there, Ivanka. Yep. The white queen, just needs to coordinate herself as a defender. Exactly. And then she's also getting ready to counterattack as well. And, of course, you have to remember white does have the extra piece, the rook, to attack the black king. So this that's lost for black. He's on the brink, but Wesley, he's doing the right thing. He had a couple of minutes extra compared to Liem, so he's just sitting on his hands. He's just thinking, OK, I've done the hard work, I've won a rook, and now I just need to be 100% accurate. Let's double-check all of my variations, do a bit of a blunder check, just avoid any of my opponent's knight jumps, any of my opponent's checks with his queen. And if you can avoid all that, if you keep all your pieces nice and safe, it's game over. So, yeah, sometimes players, I've noticed, especially when they learn the game, they rush, they play too quickly when they've done the hard work. They're too eager to get that win, but not Wesley. Oh, wait 1 second. And, OK. Oh, wait 1 second. Did I suggest a blunder? And did Wesley blunder? Yeah, Ivanka, the move you wanted to play and the move Wesley played himself, it's a blunder, because now the white king actually, no matter where it goes, there are consequences. When the white king steps up, it's going to get checked by the black queen, and there's no safe hiding place, because if you start marching up the board later on, the black knight might come to fork you. Oh, my God. Now, a diagonal check with the black queen, and the white king can't step up because the black knight would go to the h3 square and fork the white king and queen. So it's actually going to be a draw. Oh, no. He snatched a draw from the... the jaws of defeat. Yeah, a draw from the jaws of defeat. Wow, Liem, fighting spirit there, saving him in this game. And the white king just has to yo-yo back and forth between these 2 squares. And there's just no escape. No safe squares to run to. Check, check, check. It's going to be a draw. Wesley, he blew it. And Liem saves the day. Wow, Wesley So running off. He was so close now to simply